Kia ora, I'm Davina Zimmer, and today on The Detail, the role of outdoor education in our school system, how it sets students up with the best start in life, and what's at risk of being lost if it gets dropped as an academically recognised subject.
Things like risk assessment and safety management, the different theories of leadership, teamwork, conflict resolution, dynamic decision-making.
Two of the biggest things that we trade on as a nation currently are both our natural environment and our human capital. And to step away from a topic that provides such a holistic level of training in those two areas is, I think, a strategic backstep.
Particularly nowadays, students, they're so involved in technology, they're so online. There's tons of research that says being in the outdoors and movement is really good for you, good for your mental health, good for learning and embedding learning. I think we need to put more and more emphasis on, in school, getting outside of the classroom.
Last month, Education Minister Erica Stanford announced an overhaul of the secondary education curriculum, phasing out NCEA and replacing it with 5 core subjects. And the Ministry of Education has indicated outdoor education won't be one of them.
Outdoor education, among some other subjects, may be dropped from the Education Ministry's general subject list under proposed changes to NCEA.
There's growing concern over a government proposal to make outdoor education a vocational-only school subject. This is part of the planned replacement for NCEA. It would see outdoor education included on the list of subjects which could be dropped from the Education Ministry's general subject list.
We need a national qualification that sets students up for success.
But educators from around the country say outdoor education does set students up for success, teaching skills like communication, teamwork, risk management and conflict resolution. They warn that making it vocational will not only impact students, but also our industry and reputation. Education Outdoors NZ has launched a petition in response to the proposed change, and we'll talk to the chief executive of that organisation in the second part of the episode. But first, here's Claire Amos, principal of Albany Senior High School, explaining the curriculum change and how outdoor education is affected.
At the moment, outdoor education exists as a subject that secondary schools can do, and they tend to deliver it through their senior curriculum, so in years 11, 12 and 13. And it is delivered and supported by a range of achievement standards, which are NCEA achievement standards. They often use the standards from the PE curriculum, and that enables them to, when they get up to level 3, to be able to get university entrance through their outdoor education. There is also a whole range of unit standards that students can be assessed against, and those are the ones that tend to focus on the practical skills and the outdoor activities that they're doing. So they might be to do with their tramping, camping, and the sort of activities that they might be doing, mountain biking, etc. People will be aware that there's a proposal to replace NCEA, that there is consultation underway, and that's another issue and another threat to these subjects. But there is also a refresh of the New Zealand curriculum. So at the moment, secondary schools are waiting to find out what are referred to as Phase 5 subjects. So what will be the recognised subjects that we can teach at secondary school, and ultimately what we will be able to assess under NCEA or whatever that senior secondary assessment framework is called in the future. And what has come to light in recent conversation is that outdoor education is likely to be taken off the table as an academic subject and would become a vocational subject.
Vocational subjects, in short, are more practical than theoretical. They focus on teaching students hands-on skills, preparing them for a specific career or trade. But Claire says there are several issues with making any subject, not just outdoor ed, purely vocational.
For one, they actually lose their funding and resourcing. So that means that if they get classed as vocational, they will be handed over to industry to develop and support the creation of resources and what have you. That's a real problem because it's a loss of funding to the school and the subjects, but also it's privatisation by stealth. It's turning our education system into something that is delivered by private companies, which is really problematic. Now, at present, our outdoor education teachers, they work with a company called Toi Mai that gives them consent to assess and checks that their assessments. So they do work with industry specialists and partners to make sure that what they're doing is safe and appropriate. But that company is closing down on the 3rd of October. They're getting rid of it. So that suggests something is in the pipeline. But if it becomes a vocational subject, we will no longer get the funding as a school to do this. And now I note, outdoor education is one of the subjects that does usually have a cost, quite a significant cost attached to it anyway, because of the activities that students get to do. If we no longer get any funding for the subject, I think it will make it near impossible for most students to engage meaningfully in outdoor education. So there's a real cost factor, and the fact that it's being delivered and managed by external companies takes away a lot of that opportunity to contextualise the learning and the assessment to the school that you're delivering it in.
Claire says it's not a matter of deciding which subject is more important, but recognising that they all complement each other.
We know that the sciences are supported by the arts, that physical well-being and that problem solving and leadership skill building actually supports people in business and industry. I think to pretend that anything is purely academic or anything is purely vocational is hugely problematic. It's misleading. It actually undermines all and any subjects that have those labels. And I think what it also does is it will end up discouraging young people from taking the subject. At the moment, we have huge numbers of what you might see as traditionally academic students doing academic subjects such as their sciences and their maths that also do outdoor education because it is a way for them to get some of their reading credits for university entrance, but also because they recognise the skills and the competencies that they develop. And don't forget, outdoor education is providing our young people with experiences they don't necessarily get anymore. We have a real potential crisis on our hands in terms of young people on their computers too much, on their screens. Like, I'm a proponent of technology. I think all young people should have access to a device in their school learning. But I also think it's really important we maintain balance and we ensure that we're uplifting and we're upholding these subjects that get our young people off their devices, outdoors, working with other people, collaborating and developing that resilience and those skills that we know serve them so very well.
Just looking forward, what does the move away from outdoor ed as a academic subject do for our educational reputation on a global stage in terms of attracting exchange students here?
I think there is a real threat to how our education system is viewed internationally. I think the sad thing is, with everything that's going on at the moment, with the consultation around the proposal to replace NCEA, with the potential narrowing of the curriculum and the narrowing of the subjects on offer, and outdoor education is just one of those examples, we run the risk of no longer being seen as a education system and a country that values diversity, innovation, creativity, experiential learning. I mean, you only have to look to our tourism sector. We are a country that is built on adventure tourism, that holds ourselves up as a country that embraces being in the great outdoors, being this clean and green country. And outdoor education is part of that story. Making sure that we actually have young people that know how to, work safely and design recreational activities outdoors is part actually of ensuring we have a workforce that is going to be able to keep building on that tourism and outdoor adventure type industry that we have here in New Zealand. So I think we need to be really clear. This is an issue that is pointing to a much larger issue in education at present. We have an absolute threat to our education system. We have this drive to narrow our assessment framework in the proposal to replace NCEA. We have this desire to narrow and standardise our senior curriculum, and that is going to absolutely destroy the creative and innovative and localised curriculum that we get to deliver at the moment. And then secondly, I think optically, how we frame outdoor education is hugely damaging in terms of our brand as a country and how much we actually are seen to value the outdoors and the skills you need for actually thriving in the outdoors.
But learning outdoor skills isn't just about thriving in the outdoors.
There was quite an active caving club. We had a hunting, wilderness and eeling club of all things. And that was a very much part of my time at high school, was defined by that.
That's Rob McLean. He was an avid participant in Papanui High School's outdoor education program. Since then, he's studied environmental science, done research in Antarctica and Alaska, and worked in outdoor ed for 2 decades, both here and overseas. He's also worked for an ambulance service and in community engagement and risk management advisory. And now he's an ED nurse. So a lot of different jobs in a lot of different countries. But the one constant, Rob says, was high school outdoor education.
It's had an influence on every single career change I've made. Some of those formative experiences in the outdoors has had direct linkages to every one of those careers, including my current one. The wonderful thing about outdoor education is it integrates I kind of think of it as 3 domains. It integrates our relationship with the environment, it integrates our relationship with other people, and most importantly, it integrates our relationship with ourselves and, our priorities and our comfort levels, our desire for social connection or our desire for solitude. And across that, you've got so many little pieces that link in. Every time you head into the hills or head onto the river or head into the ocean, you need to think about the environment, you think about the weather systems, you need to think about the water levels, you need to think about hydrology, meteorology, geology, the ecosystem. You're interacting, you're getting hit in the face with wet bushes, and you end up learning what sort of bushes they are. You start to understand and think about risk management, and then you start to understand and think about models of risk management and understanding whether or not you might be getting fooled into making bad decisions because you understand the theory around risk management heuristics. Like, these are things that I didn't learn at Papanui High School in theory, but in actual fact, that's what we were learning at the time. And as I've gone through my career, there are so many linkages. My connection with the health service started when I did my first ever outdoor first aid course, so I could go on some of these trips.
Rob says in some ways the proposed plan to move outdoor ed into the vocational pathway makes sense because it can set students up for outdoor-specific jobs. But he says as a subject, it goes beyond simply preparing students for specific careers.
Yes, you can focus on just the skills, you can focus on tying knots, you can focus on cramponing techniques. But the theory behind it is also profound and even more powerful. Like, I was taking a course in the emergency department with a bunch of emergency doctors, and they were talking about risk traps when you're a doctor, getting caught by your own assumptions. And a lot of the models they're using to make sure that they're not making, we call them heuristic biases, where they're not making mistakes with their thinking around clinical cases, actually come out of the aviation sector. But the people who took them out of the aviation sector and made them more accessible were avalanche forecasters. And so, the crossovers from risk assessment in the outdoors to medicine to the aviation industry, that the transferability of these skills is amazing.
There's a bit about balance, and we definitely wouldn't argue that any subjects across the curriculum aren't important and valuable options. And I think outdoor education is just one of those valuable options.
Fiona McDonald from Outdoor Education NZ says the subject as it is now allows schools and its students to have choice and flexibility.
So programs can be created to meet local contexts and student needs. Avalanche rescue and snow conditions in Wanaka, caving in Waitomu. So they can build these amazing courses that are really engaging for students and give them kind of lifelong skills, as well as skills that are really relevant to the outdoors. A lot of the time, people who went through school a while ago, let's say, might have quite a narrow view of what outdoor education is, and it's grown a lot and it's a really distinct body of knowledge now. When I think back to what were in my courses, we used to do a lot on the weather. Down in Canterbury, there's some really dynamic weather patterns that we see. So lots on forecasting, interpreting weather maps, cloud formations, and then all the effects of the extreme weather events. And then all the aspects of planning trips as well. So the technical aspects of clothing and equipment, nutrition, how you get the most energy for the lightest amount of food, survival skills, all the communication devices you can have in the outdoors to keep yourself safe. And then another big component is understanding the environment. So what lives there, trees and animals. How do we protect and support the biodiversity of those natural environments? And lots of schools nowadays will be involved in predator-free work. And with all of that information, there's research and explanation and critical analysis that's involved. What we don't tell students before they enrol is that they actually spend a lot of time in the classroom researching and planning and learning the theory. With my classes, we only had kind of 2 to 3 trips a year where we were away for blocks of time, and that's where they put everything that they learnt and planned into practice.
I think that's a common misconception of outdoor education, is that, it's just a chance for kids who don't really want to learn to get away from the textbooks and go mountain biking for a day.
Yeah, I think that's a really common stereotype, and it's because those are the photos we share. That's where it looks amazing. It's also where the learning really gets embedded as well, so it's where kids really learn what works and what doesn't, and those are the experiences they remember. And it's also where they build those really strong relationships, and that helps them remember their learning.
Fiona, why can't kids do this sort of thing in their own time? I mean, the outdoors is always there.
Well, I think absolutely a few lucky kids can, like mine, and probably every other outdoor ed teachers across the country. But lots and lots of kids won't have those experiences if they're not available at school. We've got lots of urban settings now. We've got kids in Christchurch that haven't been to the beach. So it just takes away and privileges that opportunity to families that, one, have the means to be able to get outdoors, but also the knowledge. And also there's a really big difference between an outdoor recreation experience with your family and outdoor education. Although the outdoor education student might be putting some of their risk assessment and conflict resolution into practice on family trips, there's a big difference around all the other skills that you're learning in outdoor education.
Internationally, outdoor ed is recognised as an academic discipline.
And there's degree programs in all those countries that we like to compare ourselves with: Norway, Sweden, Australia, Singapore, Ireland, Scotland, England, Canada. They all have degree level programs, as do we. So I think if we narrow down outdoor education just to be industry focused, then we cut off pathways for students to go into degrees like the Bachelor of Sustainability in Outdoor Education at ARA, or the outdoor degrees offered by AUT, or really importantly now, teacher qualifications, but also degrees in conservation from Massey and Lincoln, environmental sustainability at the University of Canterbury. The list goes on that outdoor education can lead into.
Are you worried that if this change goes ahead, that we'll have less kids doing it?
Yes, just because there's 5 subjects proposed for the new qualification. The universities will set what they expect for university entrance. That will be probably at least 3 subjects. And so parents and students will focus on making sure they have a range of subjects in there that can lead to those pathways. And it will narrow down the number of students that will want to take outdoor ed. That will lead to fewer classes being offered, and in some schools, no outdoor ed at all, which I just think is incredibly sad when we live in Aotearoa, New Zealand, surrounded by the outdoors. And I guess that's why we've got organisations like Mountain Safety Council and Fish and Game submitting against this removal of outdoor education from the general curriculum.
What career sectors are set to suffer if this change goes ahead?
I think you can look at the obvious ones. So it's the pathway into outdoor instructing, think of the outward bound, but then off into the management of those outdoor centres, tourism, the kind of lack of guides, but then also into the management of those organisations. We're crying out for outdoor education teachers now. So removing or making that pathway harder is going to make that a whole lot worse. Environmental science, any of the academic recreation pathways as well, and conservation, things like the Department of Conservation, but also university pathways in that space. The amazing thing with this process of submitting to try and get this changed is we're just hearing all sorts of amazing stories from this huge range of people that have gone on to all sorts of careers, like doctors, principals, engineers. We've had Cs of large international companies that are crediting outdoor ed with their success.
Rob says if the goal is to create a future generation that can drive an economy that's strong and vibrant, outdoor education must be part of the main school curriculum.
2 of the biggest things that we trade on as a nation currently are both our natural environment and our human capital. And, to step away from a topic that provides such a holistic level of training in those 2 areas is, I think, a strategic backstep. Getting better at reading, writing and arithmetic is good. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not necessarily going to create a point of difference for us the way that Kiwis already have a point of difference in terms of our ability to get along with one another and our ability to work in the outdoors. And if you travel overseas, it's not surprising that when you go to some of these far-flung places, chances are the guide that you're going to get, or the mountaineer who's going to come and rescue you, or the ski guide is going to be a Kiwi. It's no surprises that some of the, that we tend to find ourselves doing really well in situations that require tolerance for adversity, a comfort with the natural environment, and an ability to get along with people. And I think those are some of our national characteristics. That's what make us special when we sell ourselves overseas. And I think we're shorting ourselves if we step away from that.
That's all for today from The Detail, a newsroom production supported by RNZ and NZ On Air. This episode was produced by Gwen McClure and engineered by Phil Benj. Thank you to Claire Amos, Fiona McDonald and Rob McLean for joining me in this episode. I'm Davina Zimmer. Ka kite.